with review of parameters. Parameters we know, we have seen a data table parameter. Data table as a parameter, we have seen random number, then environment, then action parameter, then test parameter. So we have seen these parameters. How we use these parameters? One is we seen at script level. Script level, what are all the parameters that can be configured? I can give a constant value. I can give a data table parameter. I can give random number. I can give environment parameter. Right? And action parameter can be configured directly to the script. This we have seen, this is at the level of script. Directly we can use it under script. When I say script, you have to come to keyword view and you can configure it under values. You can configure those values. That's what we mean by script. Second, what I can do at action level. At action level, again I can give a constant value. This can be done using action properties parameter tab. Here we create a parameter, and for this parameter we can assign a constant value. These two can be done, and this is the way we give a constant value. I can configure back using data table parameter. Data table parameter using action call properties. I can configure value option, parameter tab, configure value option under values column. So using this I can configure back data table, random number, environment. I can configure any of the above. Then test parameter. This I can configure using action level parameter. When we go to object model reference, we can manipulate all these parameters through script also. We will see those as well. Next, we have seen these are all the two levels of parameters through which I can configure the parameter inside the script. One is at script level, another is at action level. The other parameters that we have and the details of those parameters are environment parameter. You have two types. One is user defined, another is built-in. Available environment parameter is available under file settings. Environment is the tab. So user defined, you have again constant value, get from file, load from file basically. I can also do export to file. This also we have seen. We have also seen how to modify an XML parameter in the XML file and how to use it in the script. In script, we have seen environment dot load from file. This method we have seen how to load the environment from the script. So this we have seen path and file name. Then built-in parameter, built-in system defined parameters that can be used in your script. This we have seen under environment. Then test parameter, This is again available under File, Setting, Test Parameters. So here only constant value is given. There are two types of parameters, input and output parameter. Once you configure test parameter cannot be used directly into the script. That I hope you remember. So to use the test parameter, we need to configure through action parameters using action call properties, through which I can configure the test parameter. Very important, test parameter cannot be configured directly. Advantage of test parameter, user is allowed to change the value of the parameter during runtime and pass those parameters to the script. So this is possible when you click on run. When you go to click on run, you will know that you can change the parameters. I'll just open the test parameter. So when I click on run, you can see that the parameters are available for you to change. You can see this parameter is available for you to change under run input parameters. This parameter list is nothing but your test parameter. This is what we are trying to say. So this is under test parameters. Once we completed this, we moved on to multiple action. Under multiple action, we have seen two types of action. One is reusable action, another is non-reusable action. Reusable action can be used in other scripts as well. Non-reusable action can be used only within the script. Then there are two types of action. We call it as independent action at the end of test. This is the method available. Second, you have nested action. Nested action is after current step. This is the configuration available at the time of creation. So we have seen all this. Usually reusable action can be a nested action. When you are calling a reusable action, it can be a nested action. Wherever it is required, you can call one action to another action as well. Under this multiple action, we have also seen dependable action. When I say dependable action, how the values of one action is depending on the other action. So how to pass the value of one action into another action. This we have seen. The method we have adopted, one is get RO property, then output value. Output value is object dot output, then checkpoint with logical name. This is how the script will understand the output value. So we have seen get RO property, output value storing the value under data table, output value storing the value as output parameter. Both we have seen. You can also use output value and store the value to environment. So this we have seen. Get RO property is one. Output value is another method available. There are two ways I can use output value. One, using active screen. Second, using insert menu. Insert output value. So with this we have seen how to output this value. Output value we have also seen how to take it from database, how to take it from the form fields. Both we have seen under output value. These informations we have seen it under parameters, and then we moved on to reusable action. Under reusable action we have seen how to call reusable action. We used insert, call to existing action, and the syntax for it is run action followed by script name, action name along with script name followed by one iteration. One iteration or all iteration is allowed. One iteration followed by parameters if you have any. So then reusable action with parameters. So this are the informations that we have seen under parameters. So all these are parameters, how we pass the data inside the script. So we can pass in several ways. The ways that we have seen are just reviewed upon. Right? This is about parameters or data management. We also call this as data management. How we manage the data in the script. During this process, we have also learned under data management FSO, file system object. File system object is another method to store the data and use the data as well. So file system object we have seen using create object mode. Create object is the method and the class name file scripting dot file system object. This class is created by Microsoft and we use that class to create a file. You open a file, update records into the file, retrieve from the file. We have seen this. So this also comes under parameterization. Right? So once we covered parameterization, we moved on to dynamic object management. Dynamic object management is the next place that we went to manage dynamic objects. What we have seen is what is dynamic object. When we call the object is dynamic. This we have seen. So recognition properties. Usually in QTP you have to use the word description properties. Changes during properties doesn't change. Property values. Recognition property values changes during runtime. Then we call that object is dynamic. So first thing we need to, how we resolve it, first thing we need to see, is it possible to identify unique property on that object? Is it possible? If yes, is it possible to configure under description properties single property or a combination of properties? If you are able to do it, this is the first available method. Second, if no, is there any logic to arrive at the dynamic value on that object? So we need to look for this. If I am not able to use a unique property, or that unique property is not identifiable, is it possible for you to arrive at a logic how which property value changes, how it changes? Can we arrive logic to arrive the value of that object? So we try this, we see for any possibility. If yes, you are able to arrive at the logic, then method to adopt in script to arrive the logic and get the dynamic value. So this is the second option available. So first let us understand what is dynamic object. How to know it? When you run the script fails. Recording time it recorded, during run time it doesn't run. At this moment you see how to identify the dynamic. Once you identified the dynamic object, understand whether the dynamic object, what are all the properties used for recognition. Is it possible for you to change those properties to know either any unique properties? If it is available, configure that unique properties to the description properties, because that resolves all your issues. In case if it is not possible, then we are arriving at the logic to get the dynamic value. If you are able to achieve it, apply the logic and get the dynamic value. Then steps to resolve dynamic object or available methods in QTP to resolve dynamic objects. One, you have set TO property. Set TO property is to replace a value of a property in description properties, that is in repository. To change the value of the property during runtime, we use set to property. So that is set to property. Regular expression we have seen. Regular expression to ignore a pattern, defined pattern. So you can ignore a pattern that you define it in using regular expression. For regular expression, important point is one, QTP need to understand that object property is regular expression candidate. You have a check mark, and that checkbox you have to enable it. Then QTP knows it is a regular expression candidate. Please note the certification question that is asked under this is whether checkpoint can you apply regular expression to following. Checkpoint can you apply, description properties can you apply. Like this he asks for several options. It's a multi-selectable option, so you need to ensure where and all you can apply a regular expression. Recovery manager, you can apply regular expression. Checkpoint, you can apply regular expression. You can apply it to the repository, you can apply it to the shared repository. In all the locations wherever you try to manage the data, you can manage a regular expression. Second, after identifying the candidate for regular expression, use regular expression characters using star or without star. according to the situation. Once you do that, regular expression is applied. Third, what we have seen is repository parameter. We have seen it under the head called shared repository parameter. You can also use repository parameter. I am now coming back to resource object repository. The repository parameter that is usually called for when I parameterize here configure value, each property can be parameterized. You can parameterize this. This is called repository parameter. We have explained this under shared repository parameter. So then you have shared repository parameter. Then we have seen smart identification. Under this you can use smart identification to manage dynamic object. Smart identification has two options. One is base filter, another is optional filter. This is configuration of smart identification has to be done at object identification. Since we are configuring at object identification level, need to ensure that you need to re-record to enable smart identification for the identified object by QTP. For already recorded event, even if you trigger smart identification under object identification, it will not get reflected to the already recorded script. So base filter properties has to match. One of the property in optional filter has to be able to identify uniquely the object, then object gets recognized. The last portion we have seen manual manipulation. Manual manipulation is the first part you need to adopt in resolving the dynamic object. In case manual manipulation fails, so to know which property is unique, smart identification will help you to know which property is uniquely identified used by QTP to recognize the object. You can reconfigure that property into description properties using manual manipulation method. Directly open the description properties, change the value. If that is not resolving the issues, then you have to adopt either of the the above method. So this is how we manage the dynamic objects. These are all the methods available in QTP to resolve my dynamic object. This we have seen. Once we finished this, we went with checkpoints. This is the next portion that we have seen. Under checkpoints, we have seen, as I said, checkpoints are the actual comparison between an expected and actual which decides pass and fail. The pass and fail can be passed through checkpoints. 1. 2. You can pass it through reporter.report event. So checkpoints reporter.report event also passes the status pass and fail. So you have a status, you have detailed step or step name all in string, then you have details, you have an optional value of image location, image file. So you can do all this under reporter.report event. Reporter.report event is the another method available to pass status. I'll say pass and fail, pass or fail. So using checkpoints and reporter.report event, in case if you are connecting quality center to QTP and quality center you are executing the script, it can pass from checkpoint and reporter.report event passes the pass and fail status back to QTP. These two are the methods used by QTP to receive QC to receive the status from QTP. So this is closely integrated. So under checkpoints we have seen standard checkpoint. Standard checkpoint is meant for managing objects properties and its values. It can be a single property, it can be a multiple property. Then bitmap checkpoint. We have seen how bitmap checkpoint is used for GUI test. Entire screenshot of that UI we have taken, compared it, any changes, it has resulted in the failure. We have also seen how to apply tolerance limit. There are two types of tolerance. One, you can apply it through pixel, you can apply it through color. Both are available. So this is bitmap checkpoint. Then text checkpoint, text area checkpoint. Text checkpoint and text area checkpoint allows you to compare portion of the text in your either UI or web application or a desktop application. You can manage that. Then XML checkpoint. XML checkpoint we have seen from resource. We don't have option to see from application. So XML checkpoint. Then we have seen database checkpoint. So under database checkpoint, following things are important. How to establish DSN to using ODBC. This we have seen. This session, then how to configure it and how we use that session to pass the query. So database checkpoint we have seen. There are two types we have seen. One is table check and runtime check. So both we have seen it under database checkpoint. So these are all the elements that we have seen under